Hey, Kim, good to see you. I'll just take a couple of minutes to get set up here. And while we're waiting as well, have a bit of a think about any questions you might have. Nothing's off the table today, so any questions you have, let us know. You can start putting them in the chat. We're happy to answer any of your questions while I get this sorted. Yeah, Eric, oh my gosh, it is sweater weather here. It's gotten cold. Finally, I know. I'm not super happy about it, to be honest. Dr. Bart, I was saying I'm not, it's gotten cold here. Someone commented on my sweater, like it's, yeah, we're changing seasons and it's last week, oh, the mornings have gotten cold.
Well, then you're not going to really want to know what's going on here. It's like it's like the perfect weather right between like winter. We're getting out of spring. Like it's like late spring, maybe moving a little bit into summer. It's about perfect right now. It's not.
Then yes, I'm very jealous. But we had a great summer. We do have nice summers here, so I guess I gotta have a winter. For a while there, while I traveled around, I did 5 summers in a row, in different, like I do North and South Hemisphere to be able to just keep doing summer, and then finally my husband wanted a winter, but we got 5 summers in before a winter, and that's my ideal. I could just keep doing that.
I think my wife could do that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Season the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely like summer. Okay, cool. Well, we are now live. Should we dive in?
Yeah, let's dive in. Let's dive right in. This will be an interesting, fun night.
Awesome. Okay, well, welcome back everybody to another episode of the Health Made Simple show. Before we get started, as always, I want to introduce our host, Dr. Bart Precourt, who has been a healthcare practitioner for over 20 years, practicing a range of modalities, including kinesiology, chiropractic, nutrition and supplementation, and functional lab testing, all out of his clinic, Balance Health Studio in Seagrove Beach, Florida, as well as with people virtually all around the world. And he's also the founder of the Health Edge program, which is a cutting edge health program for entrepreneurs and executives wanting to take their health to the next level. So he's worked with thousands of celebrities and athletes all around the world and shares his knowledge every week with us here live on the show. So if you have questions, make sure that you put them in the chat for us, put them live on Facebook, because nothing is off the table tonight. If you've got a question about anything in the state of the world on health tonight, Dr. Bart will answer it.
Wow, that's right. Well, I'll do
Big goal. I'm challenging you.
Yeah, so all right, I'm up for the challenge. Yeah, so again, welcome everyone. If you're joining us for the first time, awesome, nice to have you here at the Health Made Simple show. And then if you are back for the umpteenth time, thanks for coming back. We appreciate it. And again, I want to say thank you for all you guys that continue to share things out, spreading the love. It's awesome. We're getting feedback. We're getting momentum, which is awesome. So we feel like we're doing a pretty good thing here with just, trying to make health simple, making it ways that we can literally get off the show tonight and level up one more time, and just those little things that we do each week. Awesome. So if you're on Facebook tonight, you can feel free to submit some questions. They'll get that to Karen, and then Karen will get that to me. And I will do my absolute best to answer it the best that I can. And yeah, every now and then I get stumped. Today, I forget what the question was. Someone asked me something, and I was like, yeah, never heard of that before. So it does occasionally happen, but just it's rare.
Yes, it's allowed to happen occasionally. Awesome. Well, look, let's start with a bit of an update. We kind of talked about last week that we were going to give people a little bit of an update on, is there any new research, any new data? Are we seeing any new stuff come out since the last time we kind of did one of these updates?
Karen, I was like joking when I said this would be an interesting night, going on, because, in and I think everyone that's going to be watching or listening to us tonight will appreciate and understand this, that it's such a sensitive topic, right?
It really is.
Anything in health is. So I'm going to really, I'm going to say it front, like everything I say, I'm not trying to cure COVID. I'm not trying to be your doctor tonight. Just trying to share some information. I'm not even saying it's 100% factual. I'm just saying I'm going to share with you the best of my knowledge as a practitioner who's in the trenches every single day. And, and hopefully you can take this information, do the best that you can with it. So there are some updates. There are some pretty cool things. And those are the ones I want to dive into tonight. And even I have an update on my recommendations for COVID. Like, we talked all year round about certain vitamins we need. I've updated that. So make sure you get that out of me soon. So there are some updates, and here's the updates I'll give you. One, when it comes to mortality and deaths, we do know that there's two primary things that are the most abundant of all the people that have died now that we have, a big pool of candidates to research from. Number one, obesity is the number one of the top of that list. That has been the biggest comorbidity. And then not a morbidity, but a co-correlation is low vitamin D levels, Karen.
Wow.
Yeah. This is huge. This was some speculation in the beginning. I call it speculation, but those of us who've been working in the health field with immune systems for, most of our careers have said, this is the most important thing we need to do. We need to get out in front of this. We need to really, really make sure that people have copious amounts of vitamin D, especially going into a winter. And so this has shed some light. And as you mentioned earlier, I run a lot of labs on a lot of my people. And the majority, and we have a health tribe, Karen. We have healthy eaters. We have healthy exercisers. We have people that are outside getting tans. And the majority, not an occasion, the majority of the labs I run, I'd say 70% or higher, people are significantly low in vitamin D. So if you don't know your levels, make absolutely no guesses here. So those two things are probably on top of the list in terms of like what is the updates. And I'm sure tonight we'll talk about, some of the others. There are some other updates that I think, I'm still looking for a research paper, real data that is on saying whether or not the vaccine has been proven not to spread the virus. There is some promising signs. There's some unpromising signs, but there's actually not enough data where they've done research on it. So that still holds true. When we still say that's up in the air, we still don't know that. And probably the biggest thing that we don't know, obviously, is long-term side effects. And I mentioned that one because I do hear a lot of the media and stuff like that talk about, 10 million people have got it and it's okay. No, look, there's no side effects. That's not a benchmark. It never has been in healthcare, not for someone like myself who practices natural healthcare. We don't prescribe drugs, but that's always been the benchmark is time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so for that being said, just because everyone's getting it, it doesn't make it any safer. And, and that's Karen, that's like our role. That's the role that I try to play is just make things, put it in play in such enough, how do we be safe? Really, the question should be, does this make me healthier? And I think if tonight, that's really what I want to emphasize. When we talk about strategies, when we talk about things that we can do tonight, I definitely want to go in a little deeper about vitamin D. I want to take all the questions you guys have from Facebook or live here. If you got questions, there's, and I have already a bunch that were sent to us, which is cool. I want to talk about the cytokine storm, which is really behind what is causing mortality or causing death in people. Those are real important things. Other than that, there's really no updates because science is based on time. Logic is fast. Science is very, very slow. And I think people forget that unless you're in the health field. We go, that's a great idea. When's the science? When is the research going to happen on that? Years. It literally takes years. We will look back at this and some of the things we thought were going to be wrong and some of the things we thought we were going to be correct. It won't work out 100% in both ways. We're going to miss the boat on some of this.
Yeah. And I think it's good to have discussions like this. And we do, if you guys are worried about anything or you've got questions, do ask, because a lot of the time, I guess, the media just says it's safe, go ahead. And people aren't kind of encouraged to ask questions, like you've kind of said, like encouraged to ask, hey, is this actually healthy for me? And that doesn't mean that you won't decide to take it. A lot of you will decide to take it, and that's totally fine as well. But at least you'll have been able to ask your questions, feel informed, and hopefully feel good about your decision either way. It does need to be your decision if you want to take it or not take it.
Interesting you said about decision making. So this is interesting. So as many of you know, I've been practicing for a long time, and so I have great dialogue with my peeps. So and my peeps, as far as I know, feel very, very comfortable with having a vaccine and talking to me about it, and not having a vaccine and talk about it. And I'm open with them about where I stand. And because I get asked that every day, I'll share with you. So I'm not getting vaccinated. I have had COVID. I do have the antibodies, and even for that matter. So let me take that second part back. Let's not even say I had COVID. My decision still wouldn't be it. But I want people to understand this. I don't put GMOs in my body. Like I don't put creams on my body that aren't organic. Like I don't put anything in my body at this point in my life. So to put something that I know not very, very little about, and I'm the guy who's really trying to research it. So that's more of my explanation. It's not because I'm anti this or anti that. Karen, every night, I just pray all this just goes away. It's like I'm praying that the vaccine is the end all, honestly.
Oh, and that it is helpful and successful and works, right? Like that's the good outcome, for sure.
Like in our country, I don't know how it is for there, but we're getting to the point where pretty much almost everyone now has access if they want it. I do think I'm going to say this and people are going to get mad at me. I think it's absolutely ludicrous to be vaccinating kids for COVID. I think it's
vaccinating kids in the US.
They're not vaccinating kids, but the companies are applying for the potential to do it. They're trying to get an emergency usage. And I think it's absolutely, I think we're going too far at that point. I really do. That's another conversation. Nonetheless, because they're not spreaders. They don't have cytokine storms. They don't have all the things that would cause people to die. Blah, blah, blah. But I pray that in like 30 days, it's just no big deal. Meaning that you've either chosen to get your vaccine and you had the availability and option to get it, and then it's working wonderful for you, and that down the road there are no long-term side effects. That honestly, that's what I hope. But I can't tell people that is the case because the research certainly isn't there at this point. The data is not available for us. And just because a lot of people do something, Karen, doesn't mean it's good.
No. For sure. And yeah, we're a little bit behind you here in Australia. We've had a pretty slow rollout. So we've only really had our phase 1 people vaccinated here. But so I think it's gonna take a while to get some of this data to come out. As countries do start to get more and more people vaccinated, I guess they will have more research and more data. And hopefully that will be shared so that we can learn from it.
Yeah, and it definitely will be. They're sharing it right now. There's papers out there. If you go online, there's papers out there. It's not like full out research, but they're correlations, and I think that's important. Yet here's the long-term, Karen. I can't emphasize this enough. So obviously, I work a lot with gut health, right? So there are some medications that I see frequently: Prilosec, Zantac, et cetera. Those are things for like heartburn and acid reflux and stuff. So just last year, Zantac got pulled off the market. I'm sure someone listening tonight was on Zantac, and it got pulled off the market after I think it's 40 years. 40 years on the market, and now they've done the correlation and the studies to show that it causes cancer.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by time. Like Google, there's a lot of things that were approved at one point and then get pulled as time tells. And the interesting thing about the Zantac is that, it wasn't deviant, it wasn't malicious, there wasn't anyone out to get anybody. But the truth is, it's still a drug you put in the human body, and time tells. And with this particular drug, the challenge was that there was one of the chemicals in it. The longer it stayed on the shelf, it changed, and then it became a cancer-causing agent. And that's the kind of stuff you only find out through time. There's nothing they can do, even with the new technology of the mRNAs. and I know some people say, well, it's not new technology. It's new technology in the human body. That part it is, especially with the vaccine. So with that, time is okay. If you want to stand on that as your foundation to say, I want to know more before I put this into my body, I think that should be well respected amongst people. I was telling you earlier, Karen, one of the things that and it's kind of a bummer that this is happening, and it's true. And maybe some of the people listening to this will be able to relate to this. Probably the number one reason right now that I hear that people are just going to get the vaccine is so they can travel. That's the one reason. And that fundamentally, so when we talk about leveling ourselves up, so let's shift gears here for a second. When we talk about becoming the best human being that we can, the superhuman status that we're all just like trying to inch toward and leveling our bodies up, we have to have the right foundation. So that's where the question always should get back to. Anytime, if we're really disciplined, anytime you put anything in or on your body or let a thought or consciousness or words into your soul, we really should be asking the question, does this make me healthier?
Yeah.
And if that's not the premise, and it's, well, I want to travel, then what other compromises will you make without knowing their outcomes and the results of those decisions? So that's probably number one. Number two, I really say it's because I want to see my kids. I hear that all the time, or my grandkids or something like that. And I think there's a misperception in our country, Karen, about travel. And I know certain countries are going to have different passes and stuff like that. But the reality, in our country, they can't do it. We have a Medical Privacy Act. You don't hear this in the media. We have a Medical Privacy Act. That means you can't ask me what my medical history is. You can't ask me if I've had a vaccine. That breaks a fundamental privacy law. No different than someone has a doctor-patient relationship or a lawyer-client relationship. That is information that is held, private, and you're not allowed to even ask that information. So state to state, we're never going to have that issue. To some degree, that falls into the categories of discrimination. So I think if people are thinking just for that reason, then they can start to make, better decisions.
Yeah. So what you're saying is people will still be able to travel within the US for sure. It shouldn't really be restricted. I mean, you can't see that it would be restricted in the future. It'll just be international travel. That'll be challenging. I mean, countries like Australia, I think it will get difficult to come in to Australia without a vaccine. I hate to say that, and I hope maybe it's not like that, but that's definitely the way we're heading in our country.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I guess we'll just kind of see how it all unfolds. I guess we'll just have to kind of see how it all unfolds. But I want to back here for a second. I want to double back to because all that we can talk about forever and until time tells. And then ultimately what ends up telling is of like certain countries that require all Americans to come visit them for tourism. And if we can't come, they're going to change the rules. Yeah. So let's go back and talk a little bit about what we did learn about the vitamin D and the obesity and about mortality. So there's a term that gets thrown out a lot, and it's something called a cytokine storm.
Yeah. So what is that? Let's talk about, what do you mean when you said that before? So what do you mean when you say cytokine storm?
Yeah. So I'm gonna do the Dr. Bart Making Health Simple version of this, because if you go online, you can find some really complicated and detailed stuff. But I'm just going to simplify this. So a cytokine is basically a protein that's released from your immune system. Your immune system makes this. So a cytokine is part of your immune system. And when your immune system gets activated, like when there's a foreign invader, that's like a virus comes into your body, that would activate the cytokines. But you could also activate your cytokines to have an inflammation in your body. That's the inflammation that we talk about all the time on our show here, that things like poor diet and sugar and stuff like that, you can have cytokine responses to everyday fundamental inflammatory markers, homocysteine levels, C-reactive proteins, hemoglobin A1Cs. Those are all things that indicate that you have inflammation in your body. So this cytokine storm, this is what happens. And this is really at the root of what has taken some people's lives. This is really what happened, Karen. I'm going to do my best to make this clear. And for everyone to listen, the reason I want to share this with you, because I want to say that I feel really, really confident that if we take the right actions, we can avoid death. Like, I know that sounds such a bold thing to say, but there's a very specific sequence of events that's taking place with this virus. And it's not by mistake, folks, that we have this virus that has hit us in a very specific time and date in our lives where, man, our whole world is unhealthy. Like we're overeating, we're eating junk, et cetera. So this is what it is. You get a response, you get a bad guy coming in your body, your immune system goes boom, site out all these cytokine cells, or these proteins. These proteins go out and they kill stuff. That's what they do. They go around and they start like punching holes in the cells and they kill viruses. And they do, if you have a cell that has a virus in it, it'll beat up that cell. It'll sacrifice the cell to kill the virus. Cool, right? But all of that produces more inflammation. So our immune system, in its response, is producing more inflammation. And now, once these cytokines, think of these are just like crazy warriors that you have in your army. Boom, you send them out and they're looking to whoop some butt. They're out there kicking things and breaking down things and creating inflammation everywhere they go. Now, the challenge here is this: if you already have inflammation in the body because you have obesity, listen, anybody who's obese, it is an inflammatory state that your body's already in. If you have heart disease, you have an inflammatory state. If you have diabetes, you have an inflammatory state. I can go on and on and on with the list here. Yet, so all of a sudden you have inflammation, and then you have all these cytokines, going to hunt down all these bad guys in your body, and you develop what's called a cytokine storm. And that storm overwhelms the body with inflammation. And in that moment, Karen, if you have weak lungs, especially because the virus really attacked the lung field, if the lungs are too weak, the inflammation creates too much of an inflammatory response, downregulates the lungs, you can't breathe. If you have a heart condition, you get COVID, you have a heart condition, you already have inflammation throughout the course of the body, and then you get this cytokine storm, boom, everything blows up. So really what happens in the cytokine storm is a massive inflammatory state that is killing people. Now, you ready for the next? Yes. All right.
Yep.
Yeah. So just understanding that is what has been behind this entire wave of really crushing people. Now, without going into too much detail, that is why there's some off-market, off-label medications that we're working. We're not even going to go there. There's some very effective things that are out there. So, but let's just talk about the fundamentals of how our immune system's working. Let's go back to vitamin D for a moment. So vitamin D's job, it is a master immune modulator, meaning this: vitamin D literally, Karen, sits on it has a receptor on every single cell in the human body. And this is important for us to understand. There's a reason it's there. Because it modulates, meaning, hey, listen, immune system, we need more response. It sends a signal, and your white blood cells release more of these cytokines or whatever they might need. Maybe they need killer T cells, whatever it may be. Vitamin D is signaling that the white blood cells. If it's too much, it tells it to calm down. Here's the problem. You got an inflamed state because you already have diabetes. You get your COVID virus. You have two things creating inflammation, and you don't have vitamin D, you can't slow it down. Yeah. It overwhelms the body, and then you die. That's like it overwhelms the body and you die. And now we could label it as a comorbidity because of diabetes, because that was the weak link, or the heart disease, or the lung field. But at the end of the day, Karen, man, and I wish this was the message, because you could feel really, really comfortable. Let's just say you chose, man, I don't want to put the vaccine into my body or whatever it may be. And you just wanted a different strategy. Maybe you just want the research to come out before you put the vaccine in. Maybe you want to wait until 2022, 2023, and let time tell. And this would be an incredible strategy, because we now know that of the autopsies that they're doing, the research that they're doing on the people that have passed away, over 80% of them were low on vitamin D.
Oh, wow. It's crazy. And I think that this is, there's a couple of things about vitamin D too, but this is important for timing of people taking, like if you are going to take the vaccine, important for timing in terms of taking the vaccine, right? So that, because taking the vaccine is also causing a cytokine storm as well, right? Is that causing the same kind of inflammation in the body?
Yes. So, and this is a really good point, because this is new in my practice and how I'm coaching people and consulting people about the parameters around the vaccine. So, a couple months ago, we came on here with a good friend of mine, Dr. Dave Hogshead, and we talked about things that we thought, as it's with what we knew at the time, things that we thought would be how to prepare before the vaccine and after the vaccine. Well, they were spot on. They really were. And so, in now knowing, taking the information that we have with all the post-COVID symptoms, COVID, the vaccines and everything, and recognizing really what we're up against in order for us to inhibit people dying is controlling or not letting this cytokine storm happen. But here's a couple things. So timing is everything. So everyone listen close on this. This is important. So if you get infected with COVID tomorrow, do not get the vaccine. Listen, well, I'm not going to tell you not to get it or to get it. I would suggest you really think about the timing that you get your vaccine shot. Here's why. The vaccine is going to provoke an inflammatory spike. So if you already have inflammation, like you just are getting through COVID, and some of those post-COVID symptoms last a fair amount of time. I know this firsthand. So you want to make sure that you are clear. What do I really think clear is? What I really think clear is 2 full months or greater. And the good news is this, Karen, and I know we're jumping around here, but in the beginning, for some reason, there was some conversation that if you got COVID, you wouldn't develop antibodies. That's not true. We do develop antibodies. You develop IgG antibodies in the beginning that lets you know that you've either have it or had it recently. And then after 5, 6, 7, 10 days, you develop another set of antibodies called IgMs. And those are your long-standing antibodies. And the people that we're testing, they have them. So I don't really know where that conversation came out way early. It was last year. And even as a practitioner, I was scratching my head. I didn't understand it. And so we started testing people. And then all of a sudden we recognized they were making antibodies. And my colleagues were testing people and their patients were making antibodies. So if you have COVID, there's an expectation that you do develop the antibodies. So, and I say that because the people who get COVID, 5 or 6 days, you get the IgG. That means it's kind of still active. And then after that, you develop the IgM. And that's the phase that you're looking for. And I say that so they can feel semi-secure knowing that you have time, you're protected. You have time to be smart, to level up your health before you go for another inflammatory shot. Because that shot, Karen, is quite frankly why we're seeing so many side effects from the vaccine.
And we can test those levels too. Can we test inflammation in the body?
Yeah. So, that's the other beauty of like a lot of the testing that I talk about, my female panel or my male panels that we run, I suggest them on an annual basis, but there's parts of that test that you can break down, things like C-reactive protein, find out, do you have inflammation inside your arterial wall? Listen, if one of my clients comes in today and says that they have, and I notice they have high C-reactive protein markers, I'll tell them, hey, listen, not a good idea to produce more inflammation. You're at risk for a heart attack. So that's where we have to be smart. And I say that because yes, there is news of young people getting vaccines having correlate. I'm not even going to say it's caused by, I'm saying correlative heart disease and heart attacks and dying. And Karen, listen, anyone under 40 years old that dies of a blood clot, that dies of heart disease, no, it's not normal. Something went wrong. Unless it's like a congenital disease that we just didn't know about, but still it boils down to the inflammation.
Yeah, for sure. And that can take, as you said, really give yourself a couple of months. That you tested some of these for yourself after you had COVID, right?
Yeah. So, I was positive for COVID for, I don't know, sometime in the fall. And it took me a little while to recover. It wasn't like, and I have a healthy lifestyle, but I like we laugh about all the time, we push hard. And when you get something that invades the body like a virus, you shouldn't push that hard. You should just relax and get some sleep and catch up on good old times. And our lifestyles aren't real conducive. At least mine's not conducive to that. Nor is my brain. Like my brain is very not conducive to that. So, I just kind of push. I want to go back real quickly to timing. So, and I think this is important, like just kind of message for everyone here. If you get the first shot and it doesn't go well, let's just say, and I, again, multiple clients today, and that's what I love about my peeps. They feel comfortable sharing with me. I don't care if you get the vaccine or not. I care about helping you stay healthy, stay strong, and leveling your butt up. So this lady was telling me that she got the vaccine shot and she felt awful. And she's a healthy woman, she had healthy habits, but it was, she's 60, I think. And she had about a 12-day, like flu-like symptoms, arm hurt, down, just not like, and she said 12 days. So whatever that meant. Well, the schedule is 21 days. And I told her, I said, no. So I'm going to suggest you give it some consideration and push it out, that second shot. It's like you being in a heavyweight fight and getting knocked out by Mike Tyson and thinking 12 days later, you're getting back in the ring with him.
Yeah.
And it's just not a smart play. Like your body's not ready for it. So the intelligence, how we level up is we take this data and we look and go, what's really taking place? Why do people have such adverse reactions? It's an inflammatory state. So we certainly load up on those things we talked about. Turmeric, we load up on the fish oils, we load up on helping the liver clear out that debris before we get the shot. We go back in like in full out beast mode before we get that second shot.
Yeah, and if you guys want to go back and check out that episode, I put the link in the chat so that you can listen to that. Otherwise, you can also download it, listen to it as our podcast. So it's episode 36. And you can check that out if you want to go, and that's the episode where we went into a little bit more detail about some of this, about turmeric, about fish oil, about some of these things you can do. But what about, and vitamin D, of course, I guess everybody kind of should be still taking that. What about people that we always kind of get the question, what about people that get a lot of sun? How do people know that they are deficient in vitamin D?
It really goes like this. If you are a darker skinned in nature, you have lower vitamin D in nature. Like, so I'm light skinned. But if you are like African American, if you are just from a northern culture and you have dark skin, you have lower vitamin D levels. You have to supplement, especially when it comes to this, because not only does darker skinned people have lower vitamin D levels, we're all inside now. It just compounds the fact that yes, we just need to supplement now. In the wintertime, absolutely positively need to supplement. In our country, like if you live in the upper states, like if you're from New York, you're from Connecticut, you're from Chicago, you're from, Seattle, you're in that top part of our country, you don't get enough sun. The sun is physically not strong enough to react with your skin to create the vitamin D naturally. So you just got to supplement. At this point, Karen, I want to sometimes I'm like, come on, folks. And I'm gonna get a little sidetracked here on the vitamin D. So a couple of days ago, I got my first call in probably a month. When I say call, like literally to my personal cell phone, where, there's text, there's Facebook, there's messengers, we're unavoidable now. But I was getting probably anywhere from 1 to 3, 1 to 5 personal acquaintances contacting me via my phone about, I've just got COVID. I was in contact with someone. I was getting those daily, at least 10 a week, probably 20 a week. But I just got my first one in the last month.
Wow.
So that's a good sign. So that is a really good sign. There's no science or data or research there. That's just data. So I was probably getting, 10 to 20 a week down to 1 in a month. The disappointing part was this. So when they said everything was going on, the husband and wife, and they both had fevers and stuff. And I said, well, all right, awesome. Bust out your vitamin D. We're going to super dose it. Get out your, in the special types of, especially when it comes to the vitamin C, we use that cataplex C, which is the whole complex vitamin C, which will help with fever and immune modulation. So I said, bust out that cataplex C and go grab what's on your medicine cabinet, your healthy medicine cabinet, grab your calcium lactate powder to help regulate the fever itself. And they had nothing. So my point, what was disappointing here, there's still a lot of people running around out there. They're not taking vitamin C, D, or zinc, and boo-hoo on them. Like, that's at this point in the game, because vaccines don't make us healthier. Social distance does not make us healthier. Masks do not make us healthier. We make our immune systems are what make us healthier, period. And again, all those are great choices if that's what you want to do, but not a single one of them makes you healthier. And that at this point in the game, and I'm probably singing to the choir right now, because my guess, 99.9% of the people that are listening to the show, or at least thinking about it, are using some type of supplementation. Maybe not all three. I'm going to recommend all three, and I'm adding a fourth. This is the perfect time. We're going to add turmeric on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Knowing now what we know, that the cytokine storm is the primary cause of loss of life due to, with COVID. It's an inflammatory state. Why not take something that naturally, readily, easily downregulates the inflammatory process in the body? And we use that one called turmeric forte, which crosses the blood-brain barrier. So you're not going to get brain inflammation, just awesomeness. Yeah. So vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, turmeric forte. And that's my addition now.
And those four you can just keep taking every day, right? Because I think you're right. As it's kind of slowed down, or there's not getting as many cases, maybe we were taking those back, last year, but we've kind of, slacked off, stopped taking them a little bit. But those you can just keep taking every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to the point that I would say, why wouldn't we?
Yeah.
Because really, we want to be healthy. We want to become the best versions of ourselves. And, I was going to start talking about all the variants and strains, but pointless, because my goal is always, how do we get healthier? And I just said it. Like, that's even to the variants. So don't let that stuff freak you out, because if you're doing what you're doing, how do you stop a cytokine storm? It doesn't matter what the variant is. There's a lot of things that cause cytokine storms. So COVID just happens to be one of them. So if you have enough vitamin D to modulate that response in your body, never mind all the other cool things that we can do, like eat better, get sugar out of our diet, do a little intermittent fasting, get some gratitude back in our life. All of those things which are going to help.
Yeah. But I mean, the people I have spoken to that have had COVID and have just done those three, I mean, add the turmeric forte for sure, but really gone hard on the C, D, and zinc, have had much easier, less symptoms, shorter time with COVID when they've gotten it.
Yeah.
It's really, I've really seen it in the people that have told me and have actually implemented that. Sometimes we almost think maybe that's simple, that those three supplements can help so much, but it really helps that much. It
really does. And also, I just said about gratitude, and I don't want to downplay the power of our mind. Having stress in our lives is a major causer of inflammation. The constant push of cortisol makes so people say, well, I don't have diabetes, I don't have these things. You got any stress in your life? Because if you're using cortisol as one of your primary hormones, because that's just what we do, you're producing a lot of inflammation in the body. So we still have this vulnerability, Karen, that like, even if you have a healthy life, and I think what I'm trying to say is, don't fight it. Don't fight this part of it, these things that can make us healthier, versus, maybe just always asking the question, like, does this make me healthier? Does this make me stronger? And sometimes just kind of rolling with it and see what happens isn't a great strategy either. Yeah,
for sure. Okay, we've got a couple of questions here. Do you want to answer a couple of questions?
Sure.
Okay. So we've got Kim here with us on Zoom. She says she's got a family member in her 30s that's recovering from COVID. She's a long hauler and still not having a sense of taste or smell, and is now starting to lose her hair. She is low in vitamin B12 and D2. Any suggestions on what she should add to her diet?
Yeah. So Kim, thanks. And this is going to go for everyone. There's no doubt about it. There's, as time goes, we've learned a lot. There's a lot of post-COVID symptoms. And so instead of just adding, first I want to talk about what we need to really change dietary, and then really the strategy here. So after COVID, I want you to just for a minute mention, there was a war. Remember, we sent all those little cytokine dudes out there, and these guys were fighting, white blood cells were fighting, and there's a lot of dead stuff going on in the body. That debris that the toxicity from the debris is what is maintaining or sustaining a lot of these long-term issues here. I'll talk about the hair loss in just a moment. Hair loss is probably the number one, especially for women. Then there's fatigue. Then one she mentioned, I think, was lost taste and smell and brain fog. Those are the top four. So, and they're legit. So first thing I want you to think of, we've got to clear the battlefield. You got to get the diet clean right away. Intermittent fasting is a fantastic way. If it's a female, I recommend somewhere between 12 and 16 hours every day. And we're just going to give time for the digestive system to get things out. Guys, you can go a little bit lower, 14, 18 hours, and you can practice. You can kind of get yourself up to that phase, but we need a timeout to clear out. If we're battling and working while we're trying to clear out, there's more congestion there. The liver needs to clear. Everything's going through the liver. All these little dead cells are getting flushed through the liver. So supporting the liver, which are the cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, kale, all those guys, copious amounts, not raw, always slightly cooked, easier to digest, easier to, get those nutrients into the body. Milk thistle, very, very, very important part of this strategy. This milk thistle is amazing when it comes to detoxing the liver, but also repairing it. And there's a good chance that things got beat up a little bit. If they, it'll also, the milk thistle to some degree will help thin bile. And Karen, what that is bile is what helps carry and transfer things out. If that individual has any issues or changes in their bowels, meaning they're becoming a little bit more constipated on and off, which they could very well be. There's another product that I'd use. I'll just throw it out here. It's called AF Beta Food. AF Beta Food is phenomenal at cleaning out the gallbladder. So it's gallbladder liver support. It thins the bile so we can move toxicities out. So that's number one. So adding to the diet. So what we got to do is clean the battlefield, and then second, replenish the deficiencies. So all your little warriors went out there with their guns, and they were shooting up, and they got rid of all their ammo. The ammo was their vitamins and nutrients. So now we have to go on like a massive reproduction or reintroduction of those nutrients to the body. The challenge here is that the body's beat up and you're not good at absorbing stuff. So we've got to be that's the intermittent fasting plays a good role here. And think nutrients. If it's not whole food, do not put it in the body. The more toxins come in, the longer, it's the long hauler COVID people, they're going longer. So we've got to replenish the nutrients. I love things like we've mentioned it here on our show before as part of our top four. Catalin, it's a whole food multi-mineral. Here comes the hair conversation. And a multivitamin. Those are real important. Real quickly with the hair loss, this is what happens. The body goes under stress. Stress creates an inflammatory response. When we have inflammation in the body, things like proteins have a harder time, the amino acids have a harder time developing into proteins. Our hair is a protein. In order for that follicle to be healthy, we need minerals. We need vitamins in order to handle the amino acids. I know I'm saying a lot of things here, but ultimately what happens under stress, we deplete our minerals, we deplete our vitamins, and you can't absorb your amino acids. So what do we do in reverse of this? So we get the body clean, we intermittent fast, clear out the liver, gallbladder too, if needs a little help pooping out. And then we start to put in like our whole food multivitamins. Don't use synthetics here because that can create a stress on a micro level as well. So we want things like, I use the one called Catalin or trace minerals B12. That would be perfect in this scenario because it's the trace minerals and B12 together. Those are common deficiencies together. And we would do that. Usually it's about 2 months post-COVID, the hair loss begins and can last anywhere for 30 days up to about another 4 months. There's the B vitamins, not just B12. B12 is easy to measure for in the lab work. So that's why it sounds like, Kim, that you had those results, and good for you for getting those lab results. But the everyday B vitamins, something called Cataplex B, would be phenomenal, and copious amounts of it. Literally wake up and take a small handful, 4 or 5 every morning for your niece or your daughter, I think what you said there. So that the B vitamins real important. If you have biotin available, it seems to help. It's not the primary one, but trace minerals, amino acids. That means we got to get, so listen, a good old piece of grass-fed beef, good. It's helpful. in these scenarios. And then of course your fatty acids, so we can make sure that the skin itself is healthy. So I know that was a lot, but if that for hair loss, a lot of people have lost. My wife did. My wife was losing. And listen, you lose your hair. Well, I wasn't really stressed about losing mine, but if you lose clumps, I bet that you could be stressful. Yes.
Yeah. It's not.
Yeah. If done all these things and nothing is bringing it back to this head. Yeah.
Fair enough. And look, we did go through a lot of things. If if this family member or anybody else wants to work with you, you work with people virtually all around the country, right? They don't have to be in Florida.
Yeah, absolutely. So literally they would do what we do right now, that we'd get on a Zoom together. If they have old labs, they can bring them. If we need to get labs, we can order them. We can, literally no matter where you are, we can get you labs or get them completed for you. And then we just do this, Karen. We get on a Zoom. It's always nice. We get to dive deep. We dive into it deeper. We always look at everything. It's as much as I'm giving a protocol right here, right now. I've also find certain personality types, people that, a little bit lean toward anxiousness are the ones losing their hair. So these are things, these are the lifestyle modifications that when we have those conversations, those consults, we go into all of that.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Next question was kind of follow up what we were talking about with the travel. Judy asks, so legally I can't be asked if I have been vaccinated. What if they require a vaccination ID? Do you know anything about that?
I think there's a lot of conversation about that. Listen, unless they're just going to forget about the ADA law, which is the American Disabilities Act, that law protects us all, saying that you're not allowed to ask someone what their deficiencies, what their disabilities. It's illegal. Like you're in our state, you can't do it. So unless all of a sudden we just threw out that, that law, which they're not. But the conversations are happening. And I feel as though it's almost just like, I hate to say this, but I'm going to say it anyways. I feel like it's just like a scare tactic to make people use other reasonings to get their vaccine card. And I'm going to go as bold as saying this. I think it's wrong when our politicians are the primary pushers of our medicines. They're not health practitioners. I'm watching a baseball game the other day. I don't even know what I was watching. Maybe Super Bowl. I don't know. And our president gets on and they're talking about get the vaccine, do your part. That's guilt and shame. Yeah. They're not healthcare practitioners. They've never practiced health. They literally don't know what they're talking about. And I can say that because I am a healthcare practitioner. They shouldn't be in that field. And when they are, it just tells me that, man, we probably should be asking different questions and getting that data from different places here. And nothing against our president. I just don't think politicians should be given health advice.
Fair call, 100%. So we got another question from Tracy on Facebook. Do you think that 3 weeks is enough time between vaccines?
Tracy, I think it can be, but I would also put into practice the things we talked about. Like I would definitely be taking turmeric every day. I'd be cleaning up your diet. I'd be sugar-free. I'd be low carbohydrate with a little bit of intermittent fasting. And I think that it's pretty good. So what I've seen is yes, although with that being said, I've also seen that probably 1 out of 2 people are having some level of a bad or an adverse reaction. And so I personally would suggest push it out. Like there's nothing nothing I've read said, if you push it out, it's not going to work. So I would suggest that if you're uncomfortable with it, or you're just not sure, you don't feel like Superwoman, like give it an extra week, reschedule it. No big deal. Go a week later so you feel better. It'll give you a better chance to be able to handle that second punch.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, Stephen asks here, my sister is 80 and has moderate Parkinson's, but she has recently begun falling. Maybe 2 months ago, she got 2 shots, the initial and then the booster of the Moderna vaccine. Is she maybe at risk because of the vaccine? And is there anything she can do about it?
Stephen, great question. And so with Parkinson's, Parkinson's already has a limited amount of, like, really what happens in Parkinson's, and I'm sure you're very privy to this, but it inhibits the amount of dopamine. And dopamine is what starts and stops movement. We forget about that. We always think it as like a feel-good hormone, but it's also what initiates the start and a stop of a movement. And that's why we see the movements with people that have Parkinson's You know, they have a little bit of forward postures, and there's a little bit of tremblance taking place. So Stephen, do I think that it makes there more vulnerability? I do. So what I've seen with a lot of my Parkinson's lab work, that I would get her vitamin D up big time. I'd get fish oils, and then I'd get some more fish oils, and I'd get some more fish oils for her. There are some, Stephen, that there's some fish oils that are made so they're super easy to absorb for these scenarios. So they absorb and cross the blood-brain barrier even more. We have to get as much DHA into our brain. That's what will help with the inflammation. And then, of course, there's something called turmeric forte. And even at 80 and power tour for, you know, like kicking around for 80 years, it's awesome. I would get a lot of that turmeric in there as well. And that just help her down-regulate, you know, any inflammatory processes, especially if she's been falling. Yes, because the shot, if it's doing its job, and this is not a knocking shot, it's going to create inflammation. And in that scenario, especially with Parkinson's, the strategy is to try to do everything we can to down-regulate those inflammatory markers that are already existing there.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Okay. Next question is taking a little bit of a deviation, but it's kind of kind of relevant to everything we're talking about, really. But Judy asks, I have one about my soups. I don't know why they're soups, but I'm taking Adrenal Tonic, Drenamin, Adrenal Desiccated. Are all three needed for adrenal fatigue? Now, when we talk about adrenal fatigue, I mean, things like that are going to leave you more open to a bad reaction with the vaccine as well, right?
Yeah, no doubt. So if anything to do with adrenals, if your adrenals are taxed on any level, that means you're probably using more cortisol than we probably should be, which means you're going to be in a more inflamed state. So those three products you just asked about, those are products that I use in my clinic. Adrenal Tonic this is pretty cool. So I'll describe these best I can real quickly here. The Adrenal Tonics, they're all herbs. That's licorice root, it's echinacea, romania, and a little bit of ashwagandha. All herbs help create action in the body. They create systems, organs, and glands to improve the action by what they're supposed to do. That's what herbs do. Another one she had there was called Drenamin. Drenamin is like the absolute best one to feed the gland itself. 50% of that Drenamin is vitamin C. There's zinc in there. There's copper in there. All the nutrients that the gland itself needs. And this is really one of the approaches that when we talk about functional medicine, this is how we approach the human body. We look at the system, the organ, the gland, and we think about that organ, system, or gland. What's its primary function? How do we improve that gland to make its better function? Herbs, vitamins, minerals. So the last one she talked about there for adrenals was something called Adrenal Desiccated. We use Adrenal Desiccated when the gland is beat up. If I see I'll typically use this when there's fatigue, or I've seen their cortisol test, their ASI, adrenal stress index, come back, and that morning production of cortisol is low. That gland is tired. So not only do we need to feed it, not only do we need to wake it up with the herbs, we got to give it we got to pump it up. And that's where we use the desiccated adrenal for. Usually it's a short-term product. You know, we start at, kind of a high dose and then go lower, lower, lower. So the answer to your question, Judy, all three play a very specific role and different role. Yes.
Okay, awesome. And if people want to test their adrenal function, they can do that test with you, right?
Yeah, real simple. It's a saliva test, Karen. It's at home. We pass it. We give them every day. Every time I'm in clinic, we give them out. We give them, we send it to you in the mail. You literally get a little box. There's 5 little vials. You spit in those vials, and it's really interesting. So, and we're also testing other hormones. Like we'll test testosterone and DHEA. So there's other things that we can test through saliva, which might be more effective than blood. And I love when we have both.
Yeah. Awesome. No, I mean, it's so interesting to get that data. I think once you're able to have a look at it, it really motivates you to make some changes, right? To be able to actually see what's going on inside your body. I know for me, it does.
The tests do, they motivate me. Like it never worries or concerns me, but they motivate me. Like get back on track. And they also, as a clinician, they can also help us determine strategy. We don't need them. But when we have them, it's one more like data point as we're trying to give, the best, most effective strategies and, and time-wise as well. So they can be very effective.
Yeah, awesome. Something we mentioned a little bit earlier was your natural medicine cabinets, calcium lactate, some things like that. So we did a whole episode on your natural medicine cabinet and everything that you suggest to have on top of the vitamin C, D, zinc, and turmeric. And so I'm just going to put the link for everybody in the chat here as well. That was episode 39. So you can go back and listen to that.
Yeah, and so people aren't too confused. They're like a fundamental group that I have. Like I say, if we're not dealing with any particular conditions, I think everyone should be using a good source of cod liver oil, turmeric forte, a whole food multivitamin / mineral, then something to help regulate the endocrine system. That's like every day, like you take your supplements. But then you have a group that you don't take every day, but they're there when you need them there. Because when you need them there, like in that moment. So something like calcium lactate powder, very few people understand it, but when you have a fever, you can take this powder, mix it up in water, drink it, and it'll help regulate literally the pain caused by the fever. It brings calcium back into the tissue, still allowing the immune system to have its response. So having these on hand, especially like calcium, doesn't go bad. You keep it on the shelf for over a year. So it's just smart. And so I had a mom the other day said that she listened to our show and she got her medicine cabinet and then used it when one of her kids got a fever and was just, was really excited and happy to know that they have the tools sitting at home. So
I love
that episode out. There's a couple products in there. I think we put 4 in there, 4 or 5 that I suggested that you need just to have sitting around.
Yeah, love it. All right, next questions are about omega fatty acids. Kim asks, we hear the importance of omega-3, but I've recently heard little about omega-7. What can you teach me about omega-7?
Yeah. So the most important thing is I still think the emphasis needs to be on the omega-3s and the relationship, as much as anything, the relationship between our omega-3s and our bad omega-6s, which is really our processed foods and our sugars and all that kind of stuff. So there's also omega-9s, so there's 3, 6, 9, 7s, but still the most important emphasis is omega-3, and probably the most important part of that is what we call DHA. DHA is 25 to 40% of what your brain is made up of. So that is where the emphasis, and here's what I'll do. I will report back on all the omegas. We'll do a show. That will be a very boring show. I'll do a part of one show about all the different omegas so we're not confused. And I don't want to confuse you tonight. I want you to focus on your omega-3s. That's where the emphasis needs to be. Those omega-3s are the good, healthy ones. Fish oils, cod liver oil, tuna. You can get omega-3s from plants as well. They are in what we call ALAs. They're not DHAs. They're still good for you. They just take a little harder to convert. Now, hard isn't the right word. It just takes a little bit more to do it. So you get a little better bang for your buck with your fish oils. So that would be my answer right now. Stick to your omega-3s as your primary source of fish oil, as your primary source of omegas.
Kim writes, yay, not boring for me. I look forward to the omega episode. We love that. Awesome. Awesome. Well, we have been through a ton of info tonight. We're ready to move on to the last question.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, let's do it again.
All right.
Get here at the end of the day, and I know this question's for me, and I haven't thought about it, but we'll come up with it. It just came.
Okay, awesome. Because the question is, what is one action that our listeners can take to move them towards their goal of becoming superhuman?
And the answer to that is going to be always ask yourself the question, does this make me healthier? That's it. Yeah. And if you get in that rhythm, it really takes so much of the emotion out of it. So I think if we get back to basics, does this make me healthier? And then it goes to my old school answer. If we don't know, the answer is always no. It's like when we go food shopping, I don't know if this word that I can't pronounce is good for me.
It's probably not.
Oh, yes. So until you do know, then the answer is absolutely no. So does this action, does this food, does this thought, does this, thing that I'm about to do, this lotion, this potion, whatever it's going to be, this magic pill, does this make me healthier? And if the answer is yes, then move forward. If not, then don't. Pass.
Love it. Keeping health simple. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in. We love that you're here, and we will see you same time, same place next week.
Awesome. Again, thank you, everyone, for being here. Keep doing the thing. Keep sharing it out. Keep spreading the love. And I appreciate all of you guys. And, of course, we can take deliberate action for your mind, for your body, for your overall wellness. Y'all be awesome.